In a city where shadows dance in the night, lived a man named Daniel, drawn to the light. In his 30s, with eyes deep and gray, he worked as a librarian by day. Daniel's life was routine, ordinary and bland. Cataloging books, his days were planned. He had friends, acquaintances, faces he'd know. Yet lately, a strange unease began to grow. He'd see a friend in the morning, greet them with cheer. And hours later, the same face would appear. But it wasn't the friend, just the stranger's guise. Daniel was certain, he could see it in their eyes. He'd tell his colleague, Sarah, of his plight. But she'd laugh it off, saying, "It's just your sight." He'd brush it aside, his mind feeling frayed. Yet the visions persisted, in the light and the shade. One night at home, as the city lay still, Daniel felt a chill, an ominous thrill. A figure stood by his window, eyes bright. He blinked, and it vanished, lost in the night. As days turned to weeks, Daniel's fear grew. Familiar faces multiplied, he didn't know what to do. He'd see his friend Mark at the local cafe. Then again as a passerby later that day. His reality began to blur, lines started to fade. Everywhere he turned, it felt like a charade. In desperation, he sought help from a friend. Michael, a psychologist, on whom he could depend. Michael listened intently, with a calm, knowing air. He suggested a specialist to help with the scare. Dr. Evelyn Stone, a psychiatrist so wise, with her gentle demeanor and understanding eyes.
"Fregoli Delusion,"
she said.
"A rare mental state, where one believes many faces are the same, it's fate."
Daniel left her office, feeling more alone. Doubting his mind, every face a clone. In the streets, in his home, the figures would blend. Every shadow, every turn, the illusions wouldn't end. His paranoia grew, his mind felt caged. Trapped in a nightmare, his sanity was gauged. One evening, tired, he wandered the park. The moon casting shadows, the night cold and dark. He sat on a bench, head in his hands, when a voice whispered, "You're in strange lands." He looked up to see an old man, eyes wise. Daniel felt a shiver, and couldn't disguise. "The faces you see, they haunt you, it's true. But there's more to this world than what's known to you." Daniel followed the man, through the misty night. The world around him shifting, twisting out of sight. Buildings morphed, the ground seemed to sway. Daniel felt reality slipping away. They entered an old house, creaking and cold, filled with shadows and secrets untold. The old man vanished, and Daniel was alone, facing illusions in this house of stone. A mirror stood before him, his reflection stared. But the face wasn't his, a sight he couldn't bear. It morphed into Sarah, then Mark, and then more. Daniel stumbled back, heart pounding, eyes sore. "Who are you?" he screamed, to the shadows and light. "Why do you haunt me, in the day and the night?" The shadows whispered, voices cold and thin. "Daniel, it's your mind, the turmoil within." He fell to his knees, the room spinning around. In the depths of his mind, he felt he would drown. But a calm voice emerged, clear and bright. "Daniel, face your fears, bring them to light." He opened his eyes, and saw Dr. Stone. "Daniel," she said, "you're not alone." The house dissolved, reality clear. He was in her office, his mind facing fear. As days passed, Daniel's struggle persisted. But with therapy and support, his sanity resisted. Dr. Stone taught him techniques to cope. Mindfulness and grounding, giving him hope. Yet the shadows still lingered, faces remained. The battle within him, his mind was strained. One night, unable to sleep, he wandered again through the streets of the city, seeking an end to his pain. He found himself drawn to the old house once more. The door creaked open, as it had before. Inside, the air was thick with decay. Daniel felt compelled to stay. A journal lay on a dusty shelf. Daniel opened it, finding notes about himself. The handwriting was his, the entries so bleak, describing encounters, week after week. Am I losing my mind, or finding the truth? Is this a curse, a trick of my youth? The entries grew darker, more frantic with time, detailing visions and a descent so prime. Then came a page stark and bare. Face your fear, find what's there. Daniel looked around, his heart in his throat. The old man appeared, like a ghostly coat. You must confront what lies inside. Only then can you turn the tide. Daniel nodded, understanding the call. He needed to face the illusion's thrall. He walked through the house, shadows thick. Each step heavier, his heart beat quick. In the basement, a door locked tight. Behind it, the source of his fright. He forced it open, the air was cold. A figure stood there, stories untold. It was him, or a version, broken and weak. Daniel faced himself, unable to speak. The doppelganger spoke, voice hollow and thin. You've been running from me, from the darkness within. Daniel realized, with a sudden start. This was his fear, the fractured part of his heart. He embraced the figure, accepting his pain. The shadows dissolved, like a cleansing rain. He awoke in his bed, drenched in sweat. The house was a dream, but the lesson was set. Daniel returned to Dr. Stone, sharing his night. The breakthroughs he'd had, the internal fight. She listened, nodding, her face full of pride. You faced your fears, you didn't hide. With time, the faces began to fade. Daniel felt stronger, the delusions outweighed. He embraced his life, with renewed clarity. Understanding his mind, and finding serenity. He left her office, feeling lighter, more free. The city was the same, but clearer to see. He'd face his fears, with courage anew. Understanding his mind, and what he'd been through. The shadows still danced, the faces were there. But Daniel knew now, they were just air. A trick of the mind, a fleeting thought. In the light of understanding, clarity he sought. So, Daniel walked on, with a mind more clear. Facing each day, with less in fear. The delusions had faded, the truth was plain. In the battle of the mind, he'd broken the chain. Like if this story left you intrigued and more. Subscribe, for new mysteries to explore. Stay with us for tales that so bold. Tales that are yet to be told.